So let's do a few more examples with what we have learned about multiplication and division. Let's say we want to divide 2300 by 10. So let's say I want to divide 2300 by 10. Well, one way to do it is, it's very straightforward to do. I can say it's 2300 is 230 multiplied by 10 divided by 10. And we already know a rule that when you multiply a number a by that number and then you divide it by the same number, the answer has to be 230. So this was a rule that we learned over here, right? A times b divided by a or a times b divided by b has to be the other number. So we already know how to do this. Another way, if you want to think about it, is we really have, these are really 10 to 30s. So I can interpret this as, maybe you can think of this as 10 to 30s, right? So this is, I'm not writing the multiplication symbol, this is just, I'm writing it as 10 multiplied by 230 and then thinking of it as 10 to 30s. And then when I divide it by 10, I clearly am only going to be left with 230. Like when I have 10 apples and I divide it among 10 children, I'm going to get an apple. Now if I have 10 230s and if I divide it among 10 children, I'm going to get 1 230. Okay? There's another way that you can think about it, which is a bit more cumbersome, I feel, but you can certainly do it, which is, you know that 1,000, so if you have 1,000 and you divide it by 10, you get 100. So if you have another 1,000 and you divide it by 10, you get 100. And if you have 100, and you divide it by 10, you get 10. If you have another 100, you divide it by 10, you get a 10. If you have another 100 and you divide it by 10, you get a 10. So if you add up, because you have 2,000s, you have 2,000 and 300s. So if you divide everything by 10, you're going to get 230, right? So that's another way to think about it. But I think these two ways are a bit more efficient and cleaner when you want to think about how to divide. So what we are learning is, when you're dividing by 10, you're just removing a 0, right? So no big deal. So let's try another one. Let's say if you have a number like 2,300 and you want to divide it by 100, then you want to figure out what this is, but this is just equal to 23 multiplied by 100, and then you want to divide it by 100, so the answer has to be equal to 23. But you can clearly interpret this as 123s. And if you have 123s, so I'm going to interpret this as a 100. So I'm going to say, maybe I should write it as 100 23s, and you divide 123s by 100, well, then you have to be just left with 23, right? Because if you have 100 apples and you divide it among 100 children, you're going to be left with 1 apple each. Every child will get 1 apple, right? If you have 100 apples and you divide it among 100 kids, each child will get 1 apple. So if you have 123s and you divide it among 100 children, each child will get 123. That's fairly obvious. And you can play the same game with thousands, right? So if you have something like 23,000 and you want to divide it and by 1,000, the answer that you will get is, so if you have 23,000 and you want to divide it by 1,000, it's very easy to work out. The answer is going to be equal to 23. And excuse me. And similarly, you can do various kinds of tricks if you want to. So for example, if you have a problem like you want to divide maybe 15,000 by maybe 300, So you can see that what you can do is that you can take this and say this is just equal to 15,000 divided by 100 into 3, which is 300. So it's 100 into 3, and by using the old laws that we have, so this can be written as 15,000, and then we're going to divide it by 100, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this result and we're going to divide by 3. But this, when you divide it by 100, this is really what you'll do. These two zeros are getting rid of these two zeros, or you can think about it in the way that we have talked about. These are just 150 hundreds, and when you take a 150 hundreds and you divide it among 100 people, then you're going to be just left with each person will get 150. If you have 100 chocolates and you divide it among 100 kids, each child will get a chocolate. If you have 100 150s, and that is what you have 100 150s right over here. These are 100 150s. If you give them to 100 kids, each child will get 150. So this is just 150 divided by 3, and this is just 15 tens divided by 3, so the answer has to be 5 tenths. And that's how you can solve a lot of these problems. You can also approximate, so things like maybe if you want to divide 959 divided by 32, you can approximate this as, so if you approximate this, so I'm going to approximate this as 900 divided by 30, and if you walk through the same ideas, you'll find that the answer is equal to 30. So that's the approximation to 959 divided by 32 is approximately equal to 30. Hopefully this will all be clear to you. Thank you.